Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. We're on the Grand Rapids in Indiana, and this is for a JMRI video. This is number 25 in the JMRI series, and I wanted to talk about two essential parts of yard trackage in JMRI. We've got track destinations and car load restrictions based on car types. I want to talk about the two because depending on if you want to do schedules or not, you need one, but you don't need the other. So let's run over here and talk about, first up, the Grand Rapids in Indiana, and I'll show you how we use JMRI and track destinations in order to control what comes in and goes out of this one particular yard over here in Muskegon. Alright, so over here in the yard in Muskegon, we've got an interchange with the Pure Marquette, and that's over here where this cut of cars is. So these two tracks are for interchanging with the PM. This is actually the Pennsylvania main line that goes to the ferry, and then here's the four tracks in the yard. So the truth is, when cars come into this yard, there's a lot of things that happen. Some of the cars are set aside to be, shipped to local industries. That's some of these cars. Plus, also cars are set out in order to be sent back on an eastbound, or I guess southbound rather, road switcher that comes up here first. When it's northbound, it terminates, drops a few cars, picks up a few more, and then it heads south. And the other thing that it does is it has to receive cars from the Pure Marquette and also receive cars from these local industries. So the thing is, these tracks over here are in the same location. I'll show you in JMRI, they're in Muskegon, just like this yard. The problem here is I don't want any of the cars that are going to local industries, those over there as well, or any of the cars that are going on the road switcher that heads back out on the main. I don't want them to be set out on these two tracks here. I only want cars here set out for the Pure Marquette. And so since I use schedules, I get to do that easily in JMRI using track destinations. So let's head over to JMRI and I'll show you exactly how that's done. Alright, so here we are in Muskegon Yard, and we've got only yards and classification tracks. So this yard track here, the ready track, this is just for holding mostly the road power whenever the road switcher comes in from the south and then terminates, and then whenever it's going to head back to the south, they kind of lay over here on the ready track. This is also where I can park the yard goats, which I will eventually have those programmed in JMRI, but what we really want to talk about today are the classification interchange tracks. Notice we've got the whole yard as one track. I've talked about that in a previous video, so about 2,400 feet. And then I've got Muskegon Interchange. That's the other two tracks. And what I've done is only registered one track's worth, and that was on purpose. That's because this is for staging cars to leave, and so we only need one track. I'm only going to send, 10 cars at once and receive 10 from that staging track because it's really small, obviously. So I accomplish this in two ways. First up, I've got, of course, restrictions, and that's not actually what I wanted to talk about today, but I wanted to talk about destinations. Now, these work together, though, so I will give a very brief explanation of what these are. If we click edit here, this is for the interchange track. It is technically a CI track, but it's only for interchange. Notice the only train that can set out is the little interchange train from the PM, and the only train that can pick up is, the interchange train is excluded from setting out. I apologize. But that interchange train is the only train that can pick up. So that's like road or train restrictions. That's good, but this right here is what I wanted to discuss. When you're using schedules, your cars that are routed are going to get a destination. You're not going to get this when you're doing just normal empties and loads. You have to do schedules and custom loads, or you have to use a certain couple of features like return when empty, return when loaded, that kind of stuff, or divisions. But if you're going to use schedules, this is a really nice feature that you get to benefit from. So these destinations are where you can click, hey, only accept a car if it's going to these places. So obviously, I'm only going to accept a car to this CI track if it's going to the Pure Marquette staging, which is the one that's in Muskegon, because there's actually going to be several in this layout. And so no car is going to go to that track unless it's being sent to that particular staging. But that's only because I have schedules and custom loads on. Same thing here with Muskegon Yard. Let's look at that one. So here we've got really anyone can set out, but the only thing that can pick up from Muskegon Yard is this interchange train. And actually, sorry, the only one who can't pick up, I apologize, I keep forgetting to check that. The only one who can't pick up is the interchange train. That's because they're picking up from the other track I just showed you, not this yard. It's like the tracks are in the same yard, but we do it this way in order to create some separation so JMRI knows where to send stuff. And then here I have 6 destinations excluded. All right, so essentially this yard will not accept any cars that are going to Grand Rapids staging, that are going to Kalamazoo staging, that are going to North Grand Rapids, to the New York Central PM Grand Rapids staging, so a bunch of Grand Rapids stuff. It also won't accept cars going to the Pure Marquette staging in Muskegon because that's literally where the other track is taking cars, and then it won't take cars going to South Grand Rapids. Now, why might it not be taking any of these? Well, that's because all of these are served by a different yard. So we want the cars that are going to these other locations to not get set out in this yard. We want them to get shipped on a different train, and we want that train to take them other places. So by clicking exclude and then clicking these locations, this yard will not accept a car that's going to get set out that has any of these as its next destination. Now, this is not final destination, and that's a very significant difference here. Final destination could be one of these things, but the destination will not be. Destination is where the car is going next. We only want this yard to accept cars that are going to here, or the ferry, or Ravenna, because all of those places, those are all worked by the road switcher. Muskegon and Muskegon Yard, those are worked by the local here in the yard. And so that's why we accept cars with destinations going to those. Destination, once again, that means where it's going next. Final destinations, though, you don't get to control that like this. That's set by your schedules and your car routing. That's different. So yeah, this yard is not going to take a car that's trying to go to North Grand Rapids next. Those cars are just going to get sent out on the road switcher as they should. All right, but that is where you find destinations, and this is how you can either exclude or accept only. You can limit it however much you like. Okay, I don't use this accept cars with a final destination, but that is useful in certain situations where you only want to use or allow cars that are routed for some particular reason. But anyways, if you're going to use schedules, this is the best way to control what cars go to what tracks. Obviously, you've got the car type selected, but this can allow you to sort those cars further based on where they're going, not just what kind of car they are. If you don't use schedules, your option that you have to work with is different. And so let me step over to the North Texas Beltline and show you that one. All right, here we are on the North Texas Beltline. This is the first model railroad I ever built in trains. It's also the first one ever released for free. You got some engine noise there in the background, but I want to specifically talk about this yard track here in Kingston Yard. This is yard track 3 West. And on this track, we hold cars that go out on the local that runs all the way over here to Farmersville, specifically to the McGuire ethanol plant, which is only this plant right here. Okay, so these 4 tracks, these 5 tracks, and of course this little 2-track yard plus the bypass, that all serves as McGuire ethanol. Okay, so this track holds cars only for that. Well, there was a time before I had everything set up just right where cars were getting abandoned here and they were just staying there forever. And I noticed after running trains a couple times, they weren't moving. I was like, well, what gives? So I did some digging and I found out that when you're not using schedules, because I don't on the North Texas Beltline, I only use empties and loads, you have to give a lot of extra restrictions. And I'll show you what I mean by loading up this particular yard track right here. So notice it's got some load restrictions. So does 4 East. We can talk about that one here in a moment, but I probably won't just because it's literally the same thing. I do have some destination restrictions here, but that's not necessary when you're not doing schedules because most cars don't have a destination. They just kind of go wherever. I did at least add it, though, because I was exploring things. You can't judge me for that. So let's pull this track up. So this track only accepts a few things. 3-bay fertilizer cars, tank food, tank gas, hopper grain, and I believe that's it. And it's first in, first out. It's got only one train is not allowed to make setouts. That's the local, because it's got to set those cars out somewhere else. It's not going to take them right back to the industry. And then that same train is the only one that can do any pickups off of this track. But here we have one destination. Once again, this doesn't matter so much when you're doing just default loads, but I did set it to the ethanol plant. Unless a car has a destination, which it won't, in my case, I don't need it. But this is what you have to use if you don't use schedules. You have to control not just the car type like you have up here, but you got to control if you can accept emptier loads. For example, the hopper grain cars, they only come in loaded. When they go to the industry, they get emptied and they do not get reloaded. If I had allowed empty hopper grain cars to come here, then they would just get buried here. And that's the thing, when you don't use schedules, cars aren't being routed. They're just being towed places and dropped off anywhere, which is fine. It's easier to get things moving, but it's a little less organized. And what happens is if you don't look for these small details, you get cars lost. And so by limiting these car types to the only loads or empties that I will allow, then obviously that makes sure that I don't ever get empty grain hoppers. And so I was able to find that problem and fix it. But this is something you absolutely have to do if you're not going to just take empties and loads for the same car type. If you are going to take empties and loads for the same car type, then it doesn't matter. All right. As an example, this boxcar here, empties and loads, I don't need these. I went ahead and added them anyways because for me it was just, going through a checklist. But you don't need any of these restrictions for track loads if you're going to ship both types or receive both types. It's fine. But notice, cool car, I only take loads. All right, this particular, bulkhead car for load and paper, we only take loads. Here we go, empty loads, don't need that one. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. You see my point. Don't need that. And those two you do need. So a lot of these I don't need, and that's okay. But if you're going to have restrictions where you only take one load type, either load or empty, then whatever yard track or CI track you're using to hold cars for that industry, you've got to make sure that you include this little detail. This is the track load option. It's right here in the center screen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was fun. I enjoy talking about this stuff. There's no problem with having railroads with JMRI without schedules. This entire railroad doesn't have any schedules, no custom loads. It's just empties and loads. I've got over 530 cars. It runs 18 trains. It's a lot of fun. It's really straightforward. It's pretty simple. The trains get a bit long. They're like usually 25 to 30 cars full length. It's like a 1,600 foot train. But it is a really enjoyable layout, and it is the first one I built before I learned how to use custom loads and schedules. So if you feel like custom loads and schedules is a bit much, just remember you don't have to do it. It sure does give you a lot of nice features though, and I will be honest, I personally will always use it from here on out. But, it's always got its trade-offs. But this has been fun, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have any more questions on JMRI, please give me a shout. I'm always happy to talk about JMRI. I do have a presentation to the Trinity River Division of the NMRA coming up in July. I'm going to do some talking about this JMRI Operations Pro, so that'll be a lot of fun. So that'll be hosted on their YouTube channel. I'm not going to take it from them. But thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you guys out there next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you around.